Coming up this Sunday, September 29th at 7 p.m. at the Fort Garry Hotel, Jazz Winnipeg will be presenting their third installment of How to Listen to Jazz series. This is a terrific series that is back by popular demand. One part history lesson and 2 parts musical performance, How to Listen to Jazz presents local performers in themed concerts that focus on composers and their instruments from the rich tradition of jazz. 2 musical sets, each centered around a specific composer, will be interspersed with educational anecdotes, stories, and historical context to help develop the audience's ability to appreciate and understand the music and its history. This Sunday's show is all about the bass. It will center on one legend of jazz, bassist Ray Brown, and one current jazz giant, bassist and singer Esperanza Spalding. Performing and talking about these 2 bassy giants will be Winnipeg bassist Lindsay Woolgar. Originally from Edmonton, Woolgar now lives in Winnipeg and can be seen performing on both upright and electric bass in many forms of music. Lindsay is a member of the Winnipeg-based bands Juval, French Class, and the Grey Jays, and has recorded and toured with artists such as Ben Surs, Matt Foster, Billy Zizi, Bobby Dove, and Jess Ray. She is the perfect person to perform and present music inspired by Ray Brown and Esperanza Spalding. This show coming up on Sunday is going to be amazing, and joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about all things bass and her performance/lecture on Sunday, I am joined by Lindsay Woolgar. Hi, Lindsay. Nice to have you here.
Hey, what's good? What's good?
I want to first find out about how this show came together. The format is a little bit unusual. It's part presentation, part performance. How did this collaboration between you and Jazz Winnipeg come about?
Zachary reached out to me. I've worked with Jazz Winnipeg before. I've also been renting out my bass for them for a number of performances for Jazz Fest. So Zachary and I have developed a good working relationship. Him and I went through school together at U of M. So he reached out and asked if I wanted to put this show on. I appreciate it. I haven't done a show band leading in Winnipeg for a while, so this is a great opportunity. I appreciate him reaching out for it.
Fantastic. Can you talk about your own background in bass? I love bass players, especially guys like Jaco Pastorius and Victor Wooten. And one of the things that sort of maybe not want to take it up is the calluses on the hands. What made you want to pursue bass as a career? And can you talk a little bit about your own bass studies a bit?
Yeah, I just really wanted to have those calluses on my fingers, man. That was no, I'm kidding. But that is true, as a matter of fact. Well, I mean, you already mentioned 2 names that were certainly people who influenced me when I was picking up the bass back when I was in junior high. I picked it up when I was 14 for the first time. I'd been playing violin already since I was 9 in the public school string program in Edmonton, where I'm from. So I discovered the bass, and I just knew right away, I just wanted to do that. I was drawn to it. It felt like a calling. So I bugged my dad for a couple months until he bought me a kind of cheap electric bass to get me started on, and got me some lessons, and I got going on electric, and I was pretty into it right away. And then when I joined high school, I wanted to be in band. So I met a great band teacher, and she convinced me to come to her high school, be in her band program. That's Roberta Burry in Edmonton, who's a long-term, revered music educator there. And I remember the first day of high school band, I'd never played double bass before, but when she asked what instrument I played, I said, double bass, like I'd been playing it for years. So I remember actually the first time going to pick it up and being like, oh, this is cool. So I got into it there, and I studied classical music through high school in Edmonton with another revered bass educator, Ian Tuttle, who was in the symphony in Edmonton for many, many years. Many classical and jazz bass players in Edmonton have studied with him. And that I studied with him. I went to MacEwan in Edmonton. I got a diploma from MacEwan. They only offered the diploma when I went there. And shortly after, I kind of hit the ground running. A couple of really great bass players had left town right when I graduated, so I scooped up all these gigs that I wasn't really totally qualified for, but I showed up, did a good job, got calls back, and all of a sudden I was playing tons of gigs and making most of my living from doing that.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's how I got started. My family was musical. My mom is a singing teacher my whole life. My dad's a big music fan, so we were always listening to really good music in the house, and that really influenced a lot of what I still listen to today, what I perform today. So I definitely attribute a lot of that to my parents and just being in a musical family where that was very valued.
Fantastic. One of the giants that you're going to be talking about on Sunday is Ray Brown. I know Ray Brown, who has worked with Oscar Peterson growing up listening to CBC. Ray Brown, Oscar Peterson, Peanut Butter and Jelly. He was so prolific. Was he an influence on you when you were growing up?
Absolutely. I don't know if your parents played nice music during dinner like mine did, but one record my mom would often put on was a Verve compilation from about 1999 called Ultimate Ray Brown. And, you know, sometimes those compilations are kind of cheesy or whatever, but this one, all the selections were picked by Christian McBride, who's, of course, another fantastic bass player. And that was like a formative record that got me into playing and listening to jazz. I got into that record, found it in the house when I was about 14 or 15. And because of that, those were some of the first tunes that I transcribed, some of the first tunes I really dug into, a couple of which I'll be playing on the performance this Sunday. So, I mean, I love Ray Brown's sound. I love how he always propels the band. I love how he's always a little bit on top of the time. It just creates such a joyful, propulsive feeling, and that's what I'm trying to emulate when I'm playing a walking bass line like that.
Without giving too much away, can you talk about some of the points and beats about Ray Brown's life and career that you're going to be talking about on Sunday night?
Yeah, I sure can. Well, he was born in 1926 and started on the piano. And the gig that kind of gave him his big break was playing in Norman Granz's Jazz at the Phil with Charlie Parker and all those great jazz musicians. And through that, Oscar Peterson started hiring him to play in the trio, which is where my favorite work of his is playing in the Oscar Peterson trio with Ed Thigpen and Oscar Peterson. And that kept him going through the 50s. And in the 60s, he ended up going to LA, did an insane amount of studio work. I think he's still on more records than any other bass player. I might be wrong about that, but like hundreds of records and just killing it on all of them.
Yeah.
And so he didn't actually start his own first trio until the mid-'80s, and he played right up until his death in 2002. He passed away right before a gig. He was supposed to play that night, and played music right up until the very end of his life. So yeah, that's kind of the Coles notes of Ray Brown's life.
Yeah. He's a monster. You going to talk anything about the Modern Jazz Quartet work that he did?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, Modern Jazz Quartet was a big part of his compositions. He did mostly were kind of through that group as well. Thanks for reminding me. That was also a big part of his career. You bet.
When it comes to tunes that you're going to be playing of his on the gig on Sunday, what tunes are you going to be playing?
I'm going to play, that aforementioned Verve compilation. I'm playing a tune off of there by Ray Brown called The Gravy Waltz. He actually didn't write a lot of music. That's one of his few tunes and kind of one of his better-known tunes out of the ones he did write. I'm going to be playing Tricketism, which is a bebop head. He played that quite a few times with the Oscar Peterson Trio. There's a few recordings of that out there. I'm going to be playing a very cool blues called Thumbstring, which features the bass playing a lot of double stops and kind of accompanying itself to start out the tune. And I discovered that one through another compilation album, funnily enough. This one was one that my dad gave me for Christmas one year, and it kind of sat in my car for months and months and months, and I finally pulled it out. And that is a record that had Ray Brown busting out with the All-Star Big Band. And that big band is like a who's who of who's in jazz. It's an incredible recording. I really recommend everyone give that a listen.
Oh, wow.
So,
it's going to be great.
Lots a few of them.
And then the second bassist that you're going to be talking about is the American virtuoso Esperanza Spalding. She is absolutely incredible. When were you exposed to her and her playing? She's only 40 years old.
Yeah,
right?
I know. She's only a few years older than I am. I heard her for the first time in probably about 2008, maybe 2009, after she put out her record Esperanza. I was on the way back from a gig with a saxophone player I was playing with in Edmonton. He's like, you heard of this bass player, Esperanza Spalding? I'm like, no. He put it on and it just like blew my mind. Her singing and playing Cuerpo y Alma, Body and Soul, which is one of the tunes we'll be doing on this gig as well. So that's when I found out about her, yeah.
She's won 5 Grammy Awards, which is no surprise. And one of the things, whenever I watch her, one of the things I find just astonishing is she's playing these intricate bass lines and singing over top of it, and the singing is completely different. Like it's on a whole other level. Have you tried recreating like her playing when it comes to your own playing?
Well, I mean, I sing and play as well.
Mm.
Like that's a major part of what I do in my band, Juvel. She actually, I had an opportunity to work with her in 2013 at the Banff International Jazz Workshop, and she told me how she learned how to do that. So she said that she would learn the Bach two-part inventions, and she would play the bottom and sing the top,
Oh
and that's how
wow,
she learned how to play such independent
that's
lines.
crazy.
So I, of course, took a crack at that, and it's very challenging. It's one of those practice things where you kind of work on, 17 different things at the same time while you're learning how to do that, transcribing by ear, taking it slowly.
Yeah.
So yes, I certainly have tried to do some of that. A couple of these tunes on this gig I'll be singing and playing, and then one of them I'm going to be featuring a good friend of mine, Gabriella Oseo, who's going to guest on Corpo e Alma.
Yeah, I was doing some reading about Esperanza Spalding, and I guess when she was at Berkeley, one of the things that she was working on was this program of understanding harmony through using your ears, not by like studying the rote, but like it's just amazing and fascinating.
Yeah.
Again, without giving away too many points, can you talk about some of the points that you're going to be talking about with Esperanza Spalding on Sunday when it comes to the lecture?
Yeah, well, I appreciate her more modern perspective on music. And I've been listening to some interviews with her, including a one that just came out about a week ago. And she mentioned a couple times, and I found this interesting, that she doesn't actually describe herself as a virtuoso. She came up in a public school string program, and she said basically that she had talent as a youth and a lot of promise as a youth. But what really did it for her was the adults in her life just giving her the opportunity all the time to try whatever she wanted to kind of try. So, she gave the example of when she was at a summer camp, a summer string camp in Portland when she was growing up. Portland's where she's from. She said, "Oh, can I write a wind quintet?" And the adults go, "Sure, why not?" And she didn't really know what she was doing, right? But, who can mess with that kind of enthusiasm, right? So that's one of the points I kind of want to talk about is just how people's expectations of her kind of shape what she has wanted to do or how she's been seen by the world at large. She will even say herself that prettiness, gender, youth were all gate openers, but her work is what really stands. So that stuff opens a gate for her, but unless she can hang, unless she can play, unless she can do all of that, it's all, what does that matter, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are all very good points.
Can you talk about some of the tunes that you're going to be doing
I sure
on
can.
Sunday?
I'm going to be doing, as I said, Corpo e Alma. I'm going to be doing Fall In, which is a really beautiful ballad she wrote, which she said a funny story about that song was that that song was inspired by Stevie Wonder. And so apparently he heard it on a radio show, a local radio show, and he reached out to her and said, "Hey, I love that song you wrote." And that actually is what led to her playing for the Obamas. That's what led to her playing with Stevie a little bit.
Oh,
So, what a beautiful coincidence that the song that was inspired by Stevie, he happened to hear and reached out to her. So, so that's one of the ones I'll be doing. One that I'm particularly excited about is a song called "There Must Be a Reason." And this is a song that she gave me when I was at the Banff Workshop in 2013. She wrote it while we were there. I've never performed it, and there's no recording of it because she wrote it for me to sing and play at this workshop. So I'm going to be playing that on Sunday night for the first time with my friends. So I'm looking forward to that.
Fantastic. It all sounds so great. Before we wrap things up, can you talk a little about the band who's going to be joining you on stage on Sunday?
I sure can, you bet. I'm happy to be playing with some of my very good friends, people I went to school with. My drummer, Kevin, who's also my partner, so I know I'm in good hands there. So I've got Kevin Waters on the drums. I've got Carter Graham on the piano, another good friend of mine from back in the day at school. Niall Cade on the saxophone, and then Gabriella Oseo on singing on just one tune.
Fantastic. Lindsay, this has just been wonderful. What do you hope audiences will take away from Sunday's show?
I hope that they get a bit more of an appreciation of the bass and the job that it does. And I hope that it inspires them to go check out some records by Ray Brown and by Esperanza Spalding. I'll certainly be leaving the audience with some suggestions of some stuff to check out. I mean, I don't know. I love playing the bass. I just want to share that with the people of Winnipeg and whoever is able to come out and see this gig.
And what better ways to do it with Esperanza Spalding and Ray Brown? Yeah,
You bet.
they're monsters. Lindsay, it has been so great to meet you and talk about all things bass. Thanks for taking the time to stop by our studio and talk to me today.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
For our Classic 107 listeners, this Sunday's How to Listen to Jazz, discussing and performing the music of the legendary Ray Brown and Esperanza Spalding, takes place this Sunday, September 29th at 7 p.m. at the Fort Garry Hotel. For more details, visit jazzwinnipeg.com or go to classic107.com. You can find more details there. Lindsay, thanks again.
Thank you.